Up there is a solemn place. Two soldiers buried in what might be the smallest military cemetery in the United States. They were soldiers of the state militia of Michigan, and they were forgotten for a couple of decades. The soldiers that were buried there were lost in time. But in the 1950s, an Army captain came upon their graves during a training exercise. And since then, the staff of Camp Grayling has taken care of that cemetery. I'm not even sure if it has an official name.
In 1913, Rasmus Hanson had donated 147,000 acres of land to the state of Michigan to be used for the military training. Camp Grayling is the largest National Guard training facility in the United States. It trains troops from Michigan, surrounding states, and even Canada.
We're at the Hanson Hills Recreation Center?
Facility?
Park? Center? Facility?
I don't know.
In Grayling, Michigan. Let's go on a solemn hike. As a regular Army soldier, I never trained at or visited Camp Grayling. But if you're a Michigander, you've probably noticed the convoys of military vehicles heading north. And I think mostly to do their 2-week stint for the National Guard at Camp Grayling. The color guard from Camp Grayling has presented at Super Bowls, NBA playoffs, World Series, concerts with Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross. Camp Grayling has 2 5,000-foot runways and 70 helo tie-down pads. In the National Guard world, Camp Grayling is a pretty big deal.
Pretty big deal.
The 125th Regiment spent a lot of time here. The regiment's roots date back to the 1850s, when 2 early militias formed, the East Saginaw Guards and the Flint Union Grays. Eventually, those 2 militias combined and were brought into federal service in 1916, forming the 125th Infantry Regiment. The regiment served in the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korea, and Afghanistan. In August of 1927, a 25-year-old private first class of the 125th, John Conroy, was suffering from pneumonia here. We don't know much about PFC Conroy, but we do know he was born in Portland, Oregon, lived in Detroit, Michigan. He died that month here at Camp Grayling. Then on July 14th, 1939, Private George Lane drowned here at Frog Lakes. He died just over a year before the 125th would be called into active service during World War II. Both PFC Conroy and Private Lane were buried here on top of Mount Franklin. And that's the lodge for the Hanson Hills Recreation Area, which has quite a history itself. Kind of a nice spot to be buried, looking out over a portion of northern Michigan. There's no record of why a cemetery was established here or why here. It's just a mystery to history. The graves are protected and fenced off. I think most of us veterans would take comfort in being buried by our fellow vets. If I didn't have a family, which seems to be the case for Private Lane and Private Conroy, although Private Lane did have a sister, and we're not sure why he wasn't buried by her. Since the 125th was a state militia at the time, Private Lane and PFC Conroy didn't qualify to be buried at a national cemetery. When World War II started, the military was involved in the war effort to defeat the Axis powers. And they had a lot of work to do with planning and training and in-processing and fighting. For almost 2 decades, the cemetery seemed to be forgotten. And then in the late 1950s, an Army Captain, Garland Bud Joyce, discovered these graves while he was on a training exercise. So he started taking regular care of the graves. In 1958, the quartermaster ordered new headstones, and a ceremony was held that year on Memorial Day. And today, 70 years later, the staff and the soldiers of Camp Grayling still take care of them. From this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he who sheds his blood with me today shall be remembered. Shakespeare wrote those words in Henry IV, and those words in these graves say a lot about those who have served and those that do serve.
The cemetery doesn't accept additional internment, but if it was a national cemetery, it would.
But there's an effort to make this a national cemetery. The closest one is Fort Custer in Battle Creek, or the Great Lakes National Cemetery. Northern Michigan has about 75,000 veterans, and there isn't a cemetery close by. The Michigan legislature is actually currently exploring the possibility, and many are advocating to put one here. It certainly would be an epic spot for a veteran to rest. Well, I'm Chuck.
I'm Poppins.
The channel's Restless Viking. Thanks for exploring with us. We hope you subscribed and liked this video so we can see you again.